Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Career Conversations here at the University of California, Merced. My name is Robert Goodman. I'm the Natural Sciences Career Specialist here at the university. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you an individual that was pre-med. Now I think I can safely say is med. Yassine is with us, and he is going to talk to you a little bit about the career pathway of medicine, particularly if you are a pre-med student at UC Merced or maybe elsewhere. I believe that he's going to give you some great advice, ideas for trends within the area, things to watch out for. He's going to talk a little bit about how he did it as well. If you don't know, he's going to be a student this coming fall at the University of Michigan's medical school. So Yassine, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm an alumnus of UC Merced, and I'm just happy to talk about it.
Sounds great. And so we are going to begin this episode, like we do with every single episode here at these Career Conversation podcasts, with the question. And the question is, of course, something that you may experience in any interview that you go into. About 95% of all interviews are actually based around this question. So it's very likely you will get this question in the future. So the first question that I have for you is, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I started at a community college in 2017, transferred to UC Merced in the fall of 2019, and I graduated in May of 2021. And so it's just been a whirlwind of pre-med stuff and classes and extracurriculars and service opportunities. But I'm glad to say I'm going to be starting medical school next year.
Thank you. And, it's so exciting. University of Michigan, great school, great campus. You've seen a lot of the trends right now. You're looking out there in medicine right now. You're seeing shifts in that landscape. I think, over the last 3 years, some random event may have happened that could have caused that. I'm interested in knowing what sort of trends are you seeing out there in medicine, maybe along the pre-med pathway, that you may want to make sure that students are aware of before actually going down this pathway?
That is a great question, and one that I think UC Merced students are going to benefit from, in that diversity and the push for diversity is just expanding and expanding. And using the University of Michigan as an example, they're considering first-gen students, low-income students, Pell Grant recipients. Arab American students underrepresented in medicine, so they get a boost. And so a trend that I think pre-med students should be aware of is understanding what identities they have, be that being a first-gen student or a first-gen American if their parents are immigrants, and realizing how those identities shape their perspectives and bringing those forth when they apply to medical school, because they are super, super valuable, especially now.
Thank you. And that is true. There has been a huge increase in investment. I think this pandemic may have shown a light on it a little bit and sort of really growing and maybe alleviating the impact of access points or increasing access points to underserved communities. And what's the greatest way to do that is building pipelines, career pipelines for individuals from those communities to help grow and maybe give back to those communities in the future. On the idea of some of those trends, if students are pre-med, what can they currently do right now in the space to prepare themselves better for these trends in the future, as well as this pathway?
So my answer to that question is going to vary based on what stage the students are in their pre-med careers. But generally speaking, if a student has a couple years left to apply for medical school, like a lot of pre-meds do, I would recommend that they understand that medicine is a service-oriented profession, and that it's just getting more and more to be that way, especially with the increases in disparities that we're seeing amongst patients and doctors. And so I would recommend that they get involved in their community. I think a great way to do that is AmeriCorps, especially if they have an identity that's similar to the patients they're going to be serving through that program. And so just get involved in your community, do service activities that you're passionate about, and seek out people that you maybe are different from and others that you can identify with, and just figure out, how do my interactions differ and how can I make myself an advocate for people of every different type of community. And that's putting yourself out of your comfort zone.
Thank you. And service is really starting to take off at a lot of medical schools. It's a trend I'm hearing over and over again. It's a service-oriented industry. Shouldn't the programs that are out there really be developed around that idea of service? But there might be other things that are out there. I don't want to spoil like where your MCAT score may lie, but I considered it extraordinarily competitive. What recommendations do you have for some of our current UC Merced students that are maybe they're sophomores, it's fall semester, and I don't know, maybe someone in the student career center said, "Hey, you should start studying for your MCATs." What sort of strategies should they do to be really competitive on that MCAT? Could you sort of tell what you did?
I can go on about this for literal hours, but I'm gonna keep it short. And say that the first most important thing you should be doing is doing as well as you possibly can in your classes. And that means when you're in Bio 110 or Bio 101, don't just be like, you know what, I'm gonna just get an A, I'm gonna chill, and I'm gonna go do the Kaplan book. Because when you build that foundation, it gets to be so much easier to do content review and to answer UWorld questions or Anki questions on flashcards. And so, again, my prime recommendation is start studying for the MCAT ASAP by killing your classes and fully understanding the material and how all the material interconnects. How does glycolysis connect to muscle contraction? How does removing a proponent of glycolysis connect to a lysosomal storage disease? Know that. And that's just through building a foundation. I actually have a whole MCAT presentation, a PowerPoint that I sent to Erica Robbins and to Robert Goodman. So I'm going to resend that. And if you have any questions about study materials, because there's a lot, or study strategies, you can ask Robert and he can send it to you.
Sounds great. I know our campus will appreciate that. That's always one that's hard for our students to navigate. It's one that is challenging, I think, nationwide for a lot of students. So appreciate any insight that you can give, because I know that it takes service-oriented background. It takes obviously a high GPA. It takes those clinical hours, those leadership experiences, some mentorship, some research, but that MCAT really plays an important part in this process. So appreciate that for our students. We come to the fifth question. This is my favorite question, by the way. And this is a question that everyone receives that comes on this show. Now, it is well documented, well known by the audiences that watch these career conversations and are avid subscribers to this program that I am no fan of bubblegum flavored ice cream. Absolutely despise bubblegum flavored ice cream. It's my arch nemesis. I just don't get it. It's bubblegum, right? And so why don't you just chew bubblegum? Why eat something that is made out of milk or something and swallow it? It doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, my question for you is, what is your favorite ice cream flavor, and why is it not bubblegum?
That is a great question, and I think the true measure of a man. Why it's not bubblegum is because as a kid I used to have an obsession with bubblegum, and so I'd like open a packet of Wrigley's and just down the whole thing in like a sitting. And so now just the thought of bubblegum makes me want to hurl. So I'm not going to say that word again today. But I'm basic. I love cookies and cream ice cream. I'm a big fan of Oreos. I'm a big fan of milk. And so combining those in an ice cream is just, it's incredible.
Sounds great, and like I said, it is bubblegum flavored ice cream. It's atrocious. So, anyways, back to the pre-med cycle, back to the medical school cycle. I think it's pretty obvious, but why is now the time that students should get involved to be in the health industry in the first place? Why is now the time to become a medical doctor? Why is now the time to get involved in a health career pathway?
Salaries are good, man. No, I'm just joking. I think now more than ever, there's a dire need for healthcare professionals. And that's going to lend itself to long hours and pretty brutal training. But they're realizing that the needs of the patients, and that there are so many patients and there's so few doctors and so few healthcare professionals that we need to treat our healthcare professionals well. And so there's this huge push for mental health in medicine that I think is incredible and that I think is changing the way that residencies are, the way that medical schools are. And you can see that with a lot of the pass fail stuff happening right now in medical education, where they're trying to minimize stress to make as many doctors go out well mentally as possible and not have a mental breakdown. And so I think now is a great time just because, again, there's a need. You're never going to be out of a job. Also, you can make an impact without being, destroyed by your training. And so I think that's a powerful thing.
Thank you so much. And it is in demand. We in fact our latest lead pre-health programming that we've done with our latest cohort. One of the projects that the students had to work on was actually healthcare staff shortages. There's not enough staff at many of these organizations. I think this next one is going to be really interesting. There might be a lot of first years listening in, second years. What words of advice do you have for them? What should they do if they're interested in actually going along this route to become a medical doctor? They're year one. What should they do right now to really start growing their background, their stories, their portfolio, to make them ready to go on this journey and possibly become a medical doctor by going to medical school?
That is an awesome question. I'm going to start with 4 words. Focus on your GPA, at least at first. That has to be something you do. You see a lot of people get over-involved and overextend themselves and join like 14 different organizations like AMSA and whatever other pre-med clubs there are on campus and 3 research labs. And you're like, you know what? They'll see that my GPA is not great, but I'm just so involved. That's not how it works. The first thing medical school admissions committees are going to see is your GPA and your MCAT score. When you've got those on lock, that's when the rest of your story blossoms. So the first thing I'm going to say is focus on your GPA. Do not neglect it. Within reason, of course. Don't go insane and try to get 104% on everything, because I did that, and it wasn't a fun time for me. The next thing I'm going to say is figure out your narrative. Figure out what makes you tick, because it's all well and good to say, I want to be a doctor for prestige and be like the next Dr. Glockenflecken, or to say I want a Ferrari, or, I like science and I like helping people. That's all great. But that's not the core reason. So figure out, what are my identities and what people do I want to serve? For example, if my parents are immigrants and they're refugees, get involved in refugee health. Figure out, how do I serve these people that I identify with in the future? And go from there, blossom out. So sit down and do that. Applying to medical school is a brutal process for me because I didn't have that narrative down. If I did, it would have been a much smoother sail. So again, focus on your GPA, figure out your narrative and your identities and how those shape your perspectives, and get involved in that capacity.
Thank you so much, and I agree. Although I like to think that most of my students have 104% in all their classes, and so listening to you speak, I know that students have a lot of passion for the space, and clearly you have a lot of passion for the space as well. What should they do right now? It's summer. They may not have classes. What words of advice can you give for them right now of what they may be doing? And by the way, it's summer right now for us. It's like late April, but you may be viewing this in fall. But if students have some downtime, what do you suggest they do other than studying for the MCAT, other than studying for maybe that next great organic chemistry or biochemistry test? What can they do during their downtime?
Touch grass, please. No, seriously. You mentioned the stuff you should be doing, studying for the MCAT, studying for your classes. I think the primary thing you should be doing if you have downtime is relax and figure out, what hobbies do I have? What do I enjoy doing, and participate in those. If you like playing soccer, get outside, touch some grass, play with some friends. Because med schools aren't just looking for some 4.0, 526 pre-med automaton. They're looking for people, and people that can identify with them, like the interviewers and the admissions committee, and their patients in the future. Trust me, if all you have going for you is that you study a buttload, you're not going to connect with people. So again, study, make sure your GPA is good, make sure your MCAT's good, but take some time for yourself and relax and improve your mental well-being because that's going to serve you so well in the future.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. I think that's a really great way to sort of platform this up. And it, again, this isn't a pathway for everyone, but there are pathways out there in healthcare. And so I just want to make sure that our audience knows that you do have options. And this is a tough route, but there's also other routes out there as well. So, if you feel like this route may not be for you, there's other things out there, but they all will require some sort of form of service, some sort of form of leadership, some sort of form of going out there and getting clinical experiences. And so I just want to put that out there because I know that a lot of people come to a number of different universities to go down one path, and it's okay to switch. There's other things out there, but your pathway was strong for pre-med, was strong for medicine. Any lasting remarks that you want to give for our students? Anything out there that you would want to showcase? Any last bits of recommendations that you can give to our students?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll look at the camera for this. Well, I'll look at the camera for this. Is that it? Okay.
There it is.
There it is. Awesome. So I want to say you can do this. Okay. I had a ton of self-doubt going into this process. You can ask Robert. Like the imposter syndrome was crippling, especially being first gen, not having family in medicine or in college as a whole. It's a nerve-wracking process, but you're gonna do well. Trust me when I say that any obstacles you're facing right now, any self-doubts you're having, those are gonna benefit you when it comes to applying. Because nowadays they're shifting the application to make it so much more focused on socioeconomic status and first gen status. So just remember, anything you overcome right now is going to be to your benefit and it's going to be a story. So don't stop grinding. Don't overexert yourself. Take a break, but believe in yourself because you're worth believing in.
And thank you so much for those last those remarks. Again, it's a long process, but if you are passionate about the subject matter, I know we both know that you can do it. So. I want to thank you, Steve, for coming on the show. I want to thank you for coming out today and speaking with our student population, and just really appreciate your time today in terms of just sharing your advice, sharing how you made it, and how you really, really grew into your dream role. So appreciate your time today. And students, if you're still watching right now, just a reminder that you should see soon popped up on your screen a number of other career conversations that you can choose from in terms of other programs that may be out there. Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. Thank you and have a great day.